Everybody, peace. Welcome to the Started Broadly College Football Show. Wherever have you listening, we're so grateful to have you here with us. As you guys know, I'm your host, Casuan, and we have perhaps the biggest show of the year for you guys so far. We're gonna be doing the previews for the conference championship games, and we're gonna be discussing what impact they'll have on the college football playoff rankings. And listen, I'm just really excited right now because this is obviously like I said, the biggest show we've done so far this year, and I'm excited. And I'm not going to really waste any time with the preamble or with the opening monologue, so let's go ahead and get right into it. But before we get started, guys, if you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content that we post daily. Be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, click on the search bar, and typing in Sorry to Bother You Show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you would like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/sorrytobotheryoushow/tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/sorrytobotheryoushow/tip. None of this is possible as you guys are fans, so we're so grateful and honored for all the love and support that you show us, and it's a blessing and a privilege to have this platform and speak with you guys. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. Like I said, we're going to be covering the top conference championship games of the weekend, this upcoming weekend. And let's start with perhaps what could be the most exciting in terms of matchups, and that's in the Pac-12 with Washington and Oregon. As you guys know, this is a rematch of a match that these two teams had earlier on in the season, in which Washington won by a score of 33-30. Oregon missed a last-second game-tying field goal from the 40-yard line, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm wrong with that one, you guys can correct me. But going to this game, two totally different teams. Oregon on film looks like one of the best teams in the country. Their defense has been phenomenal over the last 4 games, and Washington has shown to be more balanced on offense than we were expecting. They've done a much better job of running the ball the past month, and Washington, once again, another team defensively that has improved over the last half of the season. Oregon has shown that they are indeed the most physical team in the Pac-12 after what they did to Oregon State. And Washington has shown that they can compete with physical teams after their performance against Oregon State as well, to go along with their performance against Utah. So both these teams, no question about it, the two best teams in the Pac-12. And if we look at matchup predictor, my apologies. Oregon actually has a 70% chance, 75% chance of winning this game, which is a little high, in my opinion. The spread actually has Oregon minus 9.5, and the over/under is currently at 65.5. So it's going to be about as high of a scoring game as it was last time they matched up together. And I don't think the over-under is too far off on that. I do think this game is going to be in the low 30s. I do think both teams have improved tremendously defensively, but both teams are due for an offensive explosion, especially the combination of Michael Penix Jr. and Ode Odunze, who is one of the best receivers in college football. And listen, this game is, compared to the other matchups that we'll be discussing, it's really simple and straight to the point. Listen, the winner of this game gets into the college football playoff, and it's that simple. And it's hard for me to see a scenario in which the winner of the Pac-12 doesn't get into the college football playoff. Throughout the season, this has been the best conference in college football, and the two best teams here in this conference. Both these teams have floated. Washington more so than Oregon have floated around that top 4. We know Washington finally got into the top 4 2 weeks ago, probably a little later than they should have. And if Washington wins, they will secure a spot in the college football playoff. And I also think if Oregon wins, they'll secure a spot in the college football playoff as well. And this matchup also features 2 Heisman candidates, with Michael Penix Jr., who will be a Heisman finalist, to go along with Bo Nix, who who many consider to be the Heisman frontrunner. And this is due to be an exciting game, perhaps the most exciting game of the weekend, depending what side of the country you live on. And it's 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 wonderful that we're gonna get this matchup on Friday to help kickstart conference championship weekend. I do think that this game will be back and forth for the first 3 quarters. I do think these teams are going to go back and forth and trade scores. But similar to how this game ended in, earlier in the season, I do think Washington's going to be able to get a couple of key stops. I do think that Washington is going to win this game by a score of 35-28. I do think Washington eventually in the fourth quarter will get out to a 2-possession game. And then Oregon will score again to make it close. And I do think Washington will be able to get be able to get a key conversion, third down late in the fourth quarter to help run out the clock. And I think Washington's going to secure their spot in the college football playoff. So I do have Washington winning this game by a score of, like I said, 35-28. And this is going to be an exciting game, no doubt about it. And what I think is going to be the key separator for this is that Washington's offense is going to make a couple of big plays, not only on third down, but also in the passing game. And I think their running attack is going to do a good job of keeping the front seven honest for Oregon. And it's going to do a great job of keeping the defense as a whole for Oregon honest, which means that they won't be able to blitz as much. And they might have to leave an extra lineman in there to help contain the run, which we know is only going to open up the passing game. So, the balance, the newfound balance attack for Washington's offense is going to prove vital for them coming into this game. And like I said, I have Washington defeating Oregon by a score of 35-28. But Oregon's physicality is what's going to keep them in this game, especially in their offensive line. They're going to do a good job of containing pressure for Bo Nix and creating gaps for the running lanes. So it's going to be a great game, but I do have Washington winning this game by a score of 35-28. And Washington will secure their spot in the playoff. But listen, Oregon's been one of the best teams in college football. No question about it. Unfortunately, I do think the loser of this game is eliminated from the college football playoff race. And we'll discuss that later, later on in this show, like what all the implications will have each team, each game, after we've given all of our predictions. But I do think the loser of this game is eliminated from the college football playoff race. But I do think the winner, whoever wins, will be in the college football playoff. So it's a win-and-in scenario for the Pac-12 from my perspective. And I have Washington winning this game by a score of 35-28. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know what you guys think in the chat room. I'd love to hear what you guys' thoughts. Do you guys have Oregon winning this game, Washington winning this game? And what do you guys think? I'd love to hear all about it. In our next segment, guys, we are going to be discussing another exciting matchup. And be sure to stick around so you see the games that we're going to be discussing. So be sure to stick around, guys. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. In case you missed the first segment of our show, we just discussed the Pac-12 Conference Championship matchup between Washington and Oregon, and I discussed why I feel Washington will be winning that game and securing a spot in the college football playoff. And in this segment, guys, we are going to be discussing the Big 12 championship game between Texas and Oklahoma State. Obviously, this is a very exciting game as well because of the potential impact it can have on the college football playoff rankings. We all know that Texas is ranked number 7 behind Ohio State, ahead of Alabama. All in all, no one. Listen. I want to give a lot of credit to Oklahoma State, by the way. Though they do have a 9-3 record, and they are not considered one of the 2 best teams in the Big 12. They are in the Big 12 because they Big 12 championship game because they defeated Oklahoma. That counts for something, and they have perhaps the best running back in college football with Ollie Gordon II, who could be another Heisman finalist. But for all intents and purposes, no one necessarily believes that this is going to be a close game for Texas Oklahoma State. This game is exciting because of the potential chaos it could cause for the college football playoff committee. Now, what we have to understand is how you win does play a factor, and it does matter to an extent at this point in the season. Without getting into the other previews, Texas, in order to get into the college football playoff, I believe Texas needs to win this game convincingly. And when I say convincingly, I don't mean you have to. I'm not saying you have to blow out Oklahoma State by 20 points or by 30 points. I'm not saying that, but it has to be convincing enough when you're watching the game and you can say, yes, Texas is discernibly better than Oklahoma State. You can't squeak by Oklahoma State for Texas. You need to win this game convincingly to show the committee that you are starting to trend in an upwards direction again. The reason Texas has garnered a lot of flack so far is because ever since Quinn Edwards was out of the lineup for 3 weeks, the offense sputtered and the defense was inconsistent as well, and they no longer looked like a top 4, top 7 team in the country. Texas did, and you can argue they still haven't, even with the return of Quinn Edwards. But this will be a good opportunity to get another top 25 win under their belt and show the committee that once again they are trending in the right direction, and that they deserve to be in the college football playoff. And this is big for Texas because this is a game where you're not playing against the opponent. You're playing against yourself. Can you go out there and be the best version of yourself in this game? Because no one necessarily is, from what I've seen so far, is predicting Oklahoma State to pull off the upset, and neither am I. I do think Texas will win this game. But can Texas play a good enough game and be focused enough to win this game convincingly? That's where the question becomes, because that's what's necessary. That's going to be what's necessary for Texas to have a legitimate chance of making the playoff. They need to win this game convincingly, not by 3 points, not by a missed field goal, not even on a game-winning touchdown. It needs to be convincing that Texas is better than Oklahoma State, because how you win matters. The wins just don't. Getting wins just don't matter either, because can you be seen on film, and can someone see you on film and say, yeah, this is one of the 4 best teams in college football, and it's not even close? That matters. That needs to be done. That needs to be able to be said about Texas, and in order to do that, Texas needs to win convincingly and win with dominance. Like I said, they don't need to win by 3 scores or anything like that, but they need to look good enough to where people can say, or the committee specifically can say, yes, Texas looks like one of the 4 best teams. And that's what's going to take for Texas to get in to the college football playoff. So winning. They're not really playing Oklahoma State. They're playing themselves. They're going in a matchup against themselves. Can they be locked in? Can they be focused enough to put forth the best effort? And yeah, I do think, like I said, I think Texas is going to win this game. And I do think Texas is going to win convincingly. I do think Texas will win this game by a score of 31-17. I don't think this game. I do think it's going to be about a 2-score game. I do think Texas will look convincing in this performance, and which would be necessary for them to get into the college football playoff. Because what's going to happen is everything's going to work itself out the way it's meant to, right? Because now every team has the opportunity to play. It's not like some teams have to wait, or they need other teams to lose. No, every team has a chance to win and show the committee, nope, this is why we're one of the 4 best teams in the country. Everyone has a chance to add to their resume right now this weekend, and that's why I think it's fair. And that's what I enjoy so much about this playoff format right now, because it adds a level of gravitas, and each game is weighted and means something. If we get to a 12-team format, you have a potential where Michigan and Ohio State could play 4 times in 1 year. And that it just loses its allure. It loses its esteem. It loses its meaning. The game, the big game, right? Michigan, Ohio State, each regular season, it loses its meaning. And then also you have the potential factor that guys, high-level draft pick guys, if they're a 12 seed, they might just skip out on the college football playoff entirely, because now that's 3 extra games, not including a conference championship. That's 4 extra games. That's a month's worth of football. And I can see why some players wouldn't want to be a part of that, especially if they know they're going to be a high-level pick the next season. So that's why I love the format the way it is now, because it adds a level of esteem. And college football is one of the few sports where you can definitively say, listen, for the most part, the best team wins the championship. Listen, even with the inception, with the first year of its inception with the college football playoff with Ohio State, listen, they started out with Braxton Miller, then went to their second string in JT Barrett, then went to their third string in Cardale Jones. And when Cardale Jones was in, they beat Minnesota by 30 in the conference championship. And I believe they beat Wisconsin as well. Or it might have been Wisconsin they beat in the conference championship. If I'm wrong on that one, you guys can correct me. But then they go on to beat Alabama, the number 1 seed in the country, or the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. Then they go and beat Oregon by 2 scores. So even that year, there was no question that Ohio State was the best team in college football that year. Or even 2017 when Alabama got in and they didn't win the 2017, 2018 season, when Alabama didn't win the conference SEC, but they got in as a 4 seed. They beat the number 1 seed in Clemson. Then they go and beat Georgia. Listen, for the most part, the best team wins. And for the most part, I know I've given the committee a lot of flack, but for the most part, they do a good job of getting the 4 best teams in college and in the playoff for the most part. And the less exclusive a club is, the less significance it has. Because the college football playoff is so exclusive, it only has 4 teams, it means something. But now you expand the club to 12, and it doesn't mean as much anymore. So, and those are my thoughts on the 4-team format going to 12 teams. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section. And like I said, I had Texas winning this game by a score of 31-17. But let me know what you guys think in the chat room. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Love to hear all about it. But in our next segment, guys, we are going to be discussing the ACC Conference Championship between Louisville and Florida State. And this is where things might start to get a little interesting. So be sure to stick around for that, guys. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. In case you missed our previous segments, we just discussed the Pac-12 Conference Championship game between Washington and Oregon, as well as the Big 12 Conference Championship game between Texas and Oklahoma State. And in this segment, guys, we're going to be discussing the ACC Conference Championship between Louisville, and Florida State. So I was going to get right into it, guys. Listen, this ACC matchup also obviously has a lot of playoff implications. We know that Florida State is ranked at number 4, and many people are not considering Florida State to be one of the 4 best teams in college football, especially after seeing how they performed against Florida without starting quarterback and Heisman hopeful Jordan Travis. I thought last week against Florida was a great opportunity for Florida State to show the committee that they are still one of the 4 best teams, even without Jordan Travis, akin to what Ohio State did after they lost JT Barrett. Really at the same point in the season, But, they missed out on that opportunity. And once again, just like I talked about in the preview for Texas and Oklahoma State, how you win does play a factor right now, especially if you're a fringe team, if you're like a Florida State. Because you have to not only win, you have to win convincingly, especially against a Louisville team that doesn't, in all honesty, look that impressive on paper. I mean, they have 2 losses. And, they just lost to Kentucky. And Florida State is just struggled. They just struggled against a very subpar team in Florida. So if you watch Florida State with Jordan Travis, a lot of people said that Florida State was one of the 4 best teams. But when you watched them play without Jordan Travis, you could tell there was a discernible difference between how the team looked with Jordan Travis as opposed to without, which is a very bad sign if you're Florida State. This is an opportunity for Florida State to show the committee, show the country that they are still one of the 4 best teams. So you have to win convincingly. Not just convincingly, you have to win in dominant fashion against a Louisville team if you're Florida State. This is a game where you have to probably win by at least two possessions, at least by 10 points if you're Florida State. Because what can very well happen is Texas or to check out our preview show for Texas and Oklahoma State to see who we predicted. But you could very well have a Texas team and Alabama both win and both leapfrog Florida State into the college football playoff. And they would have a valid reason as to why that's done. The committee would have a legitimate reason for why if they were to do that, why they would do that. Because something I talk about all the time, that the point of the playoff is to get the 4 best teams, right? We throw out the resume, you throw out the strength of schedule and all these other factors that help, create a sort of unbiased look at it. But at the end of the day, you have to get the 4 best teams in there. And you can make an argument that Texas is better than Florida State right now, and so is Alabama, because Florida State doesn't have Jordan Travis. And I don't think anyone would give you much pushback if you were to do that. Which is why it's so important for Florida State to win convincingly if they're going to win against Louisville. But, if we look up at matchup predictor, listen, Florida State has a 74% chance of winning the game. The spread is currently at 2.5, though, minus 2.5 going Florida State's way. And the over-under is currently set at 47.5. So Vegas obviously thinks it's going to be a close game. And I think it's going to be a close game as well. And, this game can have a lot of playoff implications, especially if Florida State wins. And it can just add to the chaos, especially if Alabama wins. And we're going to cover the SEC championship game as well. But if Alabama wins as well, it can cause a lot of chaos and a lot of consternation for the College Football Playoff Committee. Because what could happen, you could very well have an undefeated Power 5 conference champion miss out on the college football playoff, which is unprecedented, unheard of. And that's more so if you follow the camp of if Alabama beats Georgia, then Georgia's out of the college football playoff, which could very well happen because people are saying, well, Georgia has won 20-something straight games in a row, and they're reigning national champions. How could you drop them after one loss? You can drop Georgia off after one loss because the committee isn't technically speaking, they're not using the resume from last year. And bringing that into this year for these teams. Each year it's a new slate. It's almost like a brand new team, right? So you can only base Georgia's rankings off of this season, not what they've done previous years. But the human factor comes into play, and obviously subconsciously they still do. So that is why you could very well say, well, Georgia could be left out if they lose to Alabama. If you had to ask me, it'd be very difficult to leave out a Georgia team that's been undefeated all season and loses to their only losses to an SEC champion in Alabama, if that was to happen. But once again, like I said, everyone has the opportunity to build up on their resume this weekend. So destiny is in the hands of Florida State to an extent where they can say, listen, if we beat Louisville by 20 points, we show the committee, we show the country, listen, we're still one of the 4 best teams even without Jordan Travis. And if Florida State wins convincingly, and I say convincingly, it needs to be by at least 2 possessions, then it's very hard, very difficult to leave out Florida State. I don't think you can. I mean, you can, but I don't think it will be done if that was the case. For this prediction, though, I actually do have Louisville pulling out the upset. I have Louisville winning this game. I do have Louisville beating Florida State by a score of 28 to 23. I do think Louisville's going to get a final stop, one stop on the last possession of the game to defeat Florida State. And I think that's going to alleviate a lot of potential chaos that could occur from the college football playoff, for the college football playoff committee. Watching the game, watching Florida State play against Florida, they looked like a completely different team against without Jordan Travis, and that was against a very mediocre Florida team. And listen, I talked about how Louisville's a very average team as well, but Louisville is discernibly better than Florida. So I don't know how much Florida State is going to struggle against Louisville, but I do think it'll be difficult because I think Florida State is a completely different team now, and I think Florida State is going to struggle to score offensively, and they're against the Louisville team that has shown that they can be very physically imposing on the defensive end, especially in their secondary. So I do think Louisville is going to, like I said, win this game by a score of 20-23, and that will eliminate Florida State from the college football playoff. So like I said, Louisville win this game by a score of 28-23. But let me know what you guys think in the chat room. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it. And in our next segment, guys, we're going to be discussing the SEC Conference Championship. This is perhaps the most exciting game of the weekend, with the most playoff implications between Georgia and Alabama. So be sure to stick around for that, guys. You're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. In case you missed the first couple segments of our show, we just discussed the conference championships for the Pac-12, ACC, and Big 12, and provided my predictions and what potential outcomes or potential impact those predictions will, or those outcomes will have on the college football playoff. And in this last segment, guys, we're going to be discussing perhaps the most exciting game with the most playoff implications, the SEC championship game between Georgia and Alabama. As you guys know, number one ranked Georgia, currently undefeated, winners of the SEC East, primed for a matchup with the SEC West division winners, Alabama. Alabama has one loss against Texas. And listen, Alabama has the potential to cause the most amount of chaos that we've seen for the College Football Playoff Committee since its inception in 2014. And there's so many different scenarios that we've discussed. What could happen? Could Alabama win the SEC and still not make the College Football Playoff? Could Georgia lose and still not get in? There's so many different scenarios, but either way, I think it'll be very difficult to not have a SEC team in the college football playoff. But listen, Georgia could eliminate a lot of this chaos by simply winning the SEC championship game. If Georgia wins, a lot of this stuff just gets thrown in the trash can. It's just hearsay, However, if Alabama wins, this is when you start to have a lot of questions. And Georgia's offensively has looked tremendous. They look like they're starting to get into a rhythm. Even without Brock Bowers, Carson Beck has starting to, like I said, get to a rhythm and start to make plays, and he's starting to look comfortable controlling the offense, and which is very ironic because Georgia, throughout their run as two-time defending national champions, their defense has been their calling card. However, this season their defense has taken a step back compared to last year, and we see how seeing their performances against like South Carolina and Missouri, they have struggled, and Kentucky as well. And Alabama looks like a completely different team compared to how they looked when they lost to Texas back on September 9th. And Alabama's defense has improved. Alabama's defense has been great the entire season. One of the best secondaries in the country, led by Malachi Moore and Khalid McKinstry, Artavius Arnold, and Dallas Turner. And Alabama's offense, we all know, led by Jalen Milroe and Jermaine Burton, Isaiah Bond, and Chase McKellen. Alabama's offense has added another dynamic, another mold, another fold to their play style, and with the elevation and play of Jalen Milroe, it completely changes the dynamic of Alabama's offense. And like I said, they look like a completely different team. And when you look at them on film, Alabama, they look like arguably one of the four best teams in college football, which is why many people think it's a very high possibility that Alabama can defeat Georgia. If no one really thought that Alabama could defeat Georgia, we wouldn't really be having a discussion about this the same way no one really thinks Oklahoma State can defeat Texas. And like I said, Alabama has a very legitimate chance of defeating Georgia. We know that Alabama is 3-0 against Georgia in conference championship games. And this is going to be an exciting matchup. Either way, however you slice it. But like I said, how you win matters. Especially at this point in the season. This is going to be a great game. Georgia, like I said, they can eliminate a lot of doubt or a lot of chaos if they win. Alabama can cause a lot of chaos if they win. It's very difficult to leave out an SEC champion or a team from the SEC in this scenario. Um, I I do think Alabama is going to win this game. I do think it's going to be a close game, though. I'm not saying it's going to come down to a last drive or a potential game tying field goal. I do think Alabama is going to win this game by a score of 34-30. But I do think Alabama will look. They will have control of the game in the fourth quarter, and I think Georgia will make a drive towards the end of the game to bring it within 4, like I said. However, I do think Alabama will be able to run out the clock and preserve the victory. So, like I said, I have Alabama defeating Georgia by a score of 34-30. And what impact will that have on the college football playoff? Based on our previous predictions that we've made, with Texas winning convincingly against Oklahoma State, and Louisville, in my prediction, defeating Florida State, I believe that eliminates Florida State from the college football playoff. I think that brings in now Texas and Alabama, and well, perhaps not. I just think that it will be very difficult to leave out a Georgia team that's only loss is against Alabama, who was the SEC champion. And as I know it's very difficult. I know people say, well, if Texas wins or if Alabama gets in, you have to put Texas in. I don't necessarily believe that's the case, but I completely understand why people would see it from that perspective. Obviously, we're not covering it, but I do think Michigan's going to win. So that's one spot right there for the Big Ten. And I think Washington is going to win the Pac-12. So that's 2 spots right there, Washington. Like I said, I think Alabama is going to win the SEC championship game 34-30 against Georgia. So I think they will be in. And then it comes down to Georgia and Texas. And when it comes down to those 2 teams, I would go with Georgia because Georgia is, based on what I've seen, discernibly better than Texas. They have just as many top 25 wins. And the big thing with Georgia would be the eye test. They discernibly are better than Texas. I don't think any team or anyone really thinks that Texas is better than Georgia. However, I completely understand why someone would want to put Texas in over Georgia. I completely understand that, and I wouldn't be upset, honestly, if it came down to that based on this scenario. But like I said, if Georgia just beats Alabama, no one has to worry about any of this. But I do think Alabama's going to beat Georgia 34-30. So I think that has Alabama in there. Excuse me. Washington in there because I believe they'll win the Pac-12. Michigan in the Big Ten because I believe they'll win the conference championship game for the Big Ten. And I think you put Georgia in there as well. I don't think you punish Georgia. The number 1 team has never fallen out of the top 4 the last week of the season since the college football playoff was implemented. But this is also a different scenario, different parameters, because this is the most, amount of teams that still have had a viable chance of making the college football playoff this late in the season. And listen, Michigan could very well get upset by Iowa, which leaves another door for Texas, right? I don't think that's going to happen. But the thing I like most about this is that, listen, everyone has the opportunity to add another spot to their resume, another check to their resume. And for the most part, everyone controls their own destiny to an extent. You play well, you win in dominant fashion, and you're in. So everything's going to work out the way it's supposed to. But like I said, based on my predictions, and who I think is going to win, the potential rankings for the final college football playoff rankings will be in Michigan and Washington and Alabama and Georgia. And listen, I'm not opposed to someone wanting to put Texas in there over Georgia, because I do think Texas will win the Big 12 title game. But those are my final four teams based on my predictions of what I think will happen in these conference championship games. Obviously, I have to make adjustments if my predictions don't come to fruition. But simply based on how I think the games are going to turn out, that's how I think the final four teams will look on Selection Sunday. But let me know what you guys think in the chat room. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' thoughts. And this is going to be a great weekend for college football. Either way, whatever team you're a fan of, let's enjoy this moment and just bask in the greatness of watching these great games on college football and the effort and the performance that these young men are putting on. But with that being said, guys, that's it for our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well, so you guys can stay up to date on all of our latest content. Be sure to follow us on Patreon as well. You can do so by going to patreon.com, clicking on the search bar, and typing in Sorry to Bother You Show. That way you can get access to all of our exclusive content that we post daily. And if you'd like to support our network and our company, you can do so by following the link in the ticker below. It's streamelements.com/SorryToBotherYou/tip. Once again, it's streamelements.com/SorryToBotherYou/tip. We'll leave the link to our official website where you can buy merchandise, our Patreon, and as well as, like I said, our tipping channel in the description. That way you can click on those links and check them out whenever you like. But guys, we'll be back again on Monday, same time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Have a wonderful weekend. Be safe. Enjoy the games of college football. Watch with your family, however you see fit. Just enjoy the weekend, guys. And until then, continue to stay safe, be vigilant, make smart decisions, and peace.